start. Okay. Okay. So we are now thinking about Moshe. We got the name as we discussed last week last week and 2 weeks. We spent 2 weeks on the name, and now we're ready to move forward a little bit and think about the stories of Moshe. And it's interesting that if you want to think about what were the credentials of Moshe, like why was he chosen to be the one to take the Jewish people out of Egypt? So it's interesting that sometimes there is somebody who is a very important figure, but the Torah doesn't tell you all about everything you need to know about that person immediately. In other words, it withholds some information until later. For example, Moshe. Moshe, we know, was the greatest prophet. That's one thing the Torah says about him. The Torah also says about him that he was the humblest of men. In the book of Numbers, it says, Va'ish Moshe anav ma'od, Moshe is the most humble of men. And many of the commentators and the philosophers discuss how these two elements are interrelated. The concept of prophecy and the concept of humility come together, because in biblical Hebrew, the word chachma, the word for wisdom, is really is a combination of two words, koach ma, the ability of what? The ability, what is like what's happening here? Like Moshe, one of the times when the Jewish people complain against Moses and Aaron, Moses and Aaron, Moshe says, V'nachnu ma, we are what? What are you complaining to us? We're nothing, right? Complain to Hashem. So ma is what? What means I have no substance, I'm nothing. So the idea of wisdom, to be able to come up with a new idea, to see what other people don't see, is the ability to be humble in the sense that I don't necessarily think I know all the answers, right? So you have what they call bina, which is understanding. And understanding is person masters the subject. Okay. But then a breakthrough has never happened through bina. Breakthrough happens when somebody says that, the entire model that we're thinking about is not accurate, and we have to be open that our information is not necessarily correct, and there's another whole model out there. But to do that, you have to be humble, and you have to be able to be open like a child. Children have this capacity where when they learn or when they listen, they're listening completely. That's why people think their memory is so powerful, because they're completely open to what they're going to hear. And the chachma, koachma, the ability to say what, the ability to sense that there's something beyond that which I can perceive with my senses or with my mind. That is chachma, that's wisdom, that's creativity, but it's also prophecy. Because what is prophecy? Prophecy is the ability to see beyond that which meets the senses, right? To sense the spirituality, to sense the holiness of God. And for that, you need that humility. So therefore, it's no surprise that Moshe, who's the humblest of men, is also the greatest prophet, right? And the fact that Moshe is one of the greatest prophets is not just a nice and interesting piece of information that the Torah puts at the final page of the Torah, but it's also makes its way to Maimonides' 13 principles of faith. Maimonides, one of the 13 principles of faith is to believe in prophecy, to believe that the Torah is from heaven, and to believe that Moshe's prophecy is superior to the prophecy of any other prophet. And the reason why that's so important is because Moshe's prophecy is superior, that's why Moshe's prophecy doesn't change. That's why the Torah doesn't change. And that's one of the principles of faith, that this Torah will not change. So part of that is that the idea that Moshe's prophecy is greater than everyone else's. So he's the greatest prophet, probably not because he's necessarily the wisest, but he's the most humblest of men. Okay, fine. But the Torah doesn't tell this to us till the book of Numbers, that he's the humblest of men. Torah doesn't tell us he's the greatest prophet until we get to the last page of the Torah, the last few verses of the Torah. What does the Torah tell us about Moshe here, and why he's selected to step in and take the Jewish people, to be dispatched to Pharaoh and take the people out of Egypt, which is something he absolutely does not want to do, as we will read. So what's fascinating is that Moshe's credentials are told in 3 little stories, 3 little episodes. And what they all have in common is that Moshe is somebody who can not tolerate injustice. And when he sees injustice, he's going to step in and he's going to act. And we have 3 stories that are going to happen, one in succession, I think. Yeah. And then we can talk about, and that's who Moshe is. And then the next thing, in the next chapter, you read about a God comes tells Moshe, go to Pharaoh. Who's Moshe? We don't know. Well, we know who Moshe is based on those credentials. And then we can start thinking about the differences between these three episodes. But before we think about the differences, we want to think about what they have in common. So we'll do it quickly because some of these stories are well known. It's right there in the text, but I don't know how quickly we'll do it. Well, let's see. So let's share the screen and we'll see what we could make of these stories. So share again. Okay, here we go. So this is the story. We're on top of page 299, page 11. And this is, again, a continuation to last week, which is right after he gets his name. And we discussed this notion that his name is Moshe because I drew him from the water, and not just drew that Moshe's stepmother drew him from the water, but she names him Moshe, you will therefore draw others. And in a way, in a case in point, right now, we're seeing the stories where Moshe does, in fact, step in to draw somebody else out of the problem. Okay, so what's the problem? Verse 11. And now it came to pass in those days that Moses grew up and went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man of his brothers. So we touched upon this. It seems to be, I think the more logical interpretation would be to say that at this point he knows he's Jewish, because even though it's not Moshe himself, but it's the narrator referring to the Hebrew as his brother, right? So it seems like Moshe felt that brotherhood to them, even though it's not in Moshe's words, it's in the narrator's words, but that's probably, I think that would be the closer interpretation, that Moshe knows that he is a Hebrew, and he goes out and he sees to see what's happening. Okay, what does he do? He sees an Egyptian striking a Jew. What does he do? He turns this way and that way, and he saw that there was no man. So he struck the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. He hit him in the sand. Okay, so he kills the oppressor. Next story, that's episode number 1. Next story, he went out on the second day, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, why are you going to strike your friend? Why are you going to strike your friend? Now that Hebrew, so now it's 2 Hebrews fighting. What does the guy respond? And he retorted, who made you a man, a prince, and a judge over us? Do you plan to slay me as you have slain the Egyptian? Moses became frightened and said, indeed, the matter has become known. Moshe, on page 11, and verse 12, Moshe kills the Egyptian. Before he kills the Egyptian, he looks this way and that way. He wants to make sure no one's looking. Why? Moshe is not looking to be a hero. He's not looking for everyone to know about what happened. Maybe he's afraid. So he wants to kill the Egyptian. He doesn't want anyone to know. But now all of a sudden he sees that people know about it. Not only people know about it, but this guy, this Hebrew, is prepared to use that fact against him. So now Moshe is frightened. Okay, what happens then? Nothing. But then verse 15, Pharaoh heard of this incident and he sought to slay Moses. Moses, even though he's his daughter's stepson, but you kill an Egyptian, can't kill an Egyptian. Maybe to protect the slaves, certainly not. So Pharaoh thinks that this guy is trouble. He's protecting the slaves. He's standing up to the oppression. Obviously, danger, not just to this Egyptian that he killed, but danger to the whole system, to the whole economy of Egypt. And therefore, Pharaoh says he got to kill this, which is very dramatic, right? Very drastic, because you could say, what does Pharaoh care? His grandson killed somebody. No, but he's killing an Egyptian to protect the slave. That's undermining the entire system of Egypt. So what does Moshe do? Moshe runs away. So Moshe fled from before Pharaoh. He stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So we're already 2 stories, right? That we had Moshe killing the Egyptian who was striking the Jew. And then when 2 Hebrews are fighting, Moshe steps in and tells the Hebrew, why are you hitting your brother? And then he has to run away, and he goes to the well. Why do you go to well? Well, that's where you find a spouse, right? That's what happened with how many? 2 of the patriarchs found the spouse at the well. That was Eliezer came to found Rebekah at the well for Isaac, and then when Jacob ran away to Haran, the next generation, he meets Rachel at the well, and Moshe also goes to the well, right? Today, you come to town, you want to see what's going on. You go to the avenue, you go to the coffee shop. In the olden days, you went to the well. Where else are you going to go? That's the one place where everybody congregates, not at Starbucks, but at the well. Okay, so they're at the well. What happens? Problem is, so this verse 16. Now the chief of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the furrows to water their father's flocks. So now the chief of Midian has 7 daughters, and they're all shepherds. The problem is, but the shepherds came and drove them away. Shepherds is male shepherds. The male shepherds are not happy that the girls are taking over the industry. It's a threat to their industry. So what do they say? So they chase them away. Moshe arose and rescued them and watered their flocks. So again, Moshe steps in. They came to their father Reuel, and he said, "Why have you come so quickly today? How did you make it back so fast?" Because apparently they're harassed every day, and they have to wait for all the other shepherds to leave before they can water their flock. But today they finished early. What happened? They replied, "An Egyptian man rescued us from the hands of the shepherds." It's very interesting. An Egyptian man. It's not clear what did they mean. Did Moshe say he's an Egyptian? Was he dressed like an Egyptian? Why did they say Egyptian man? There's a medrash that's critical of Moshe for the fact that they call him Egyptian man, meaning he told them he's an Egyptian man. So we can get into that later. But basically, they say there's an Egyptian man who rescued us from the hands of the shepherds, and he also drew water for us and watered the flocks. So the father, the smart man, oh, nice guy. That bring him home. You got 7 daughters. He'll marry. So one of them out of 7, I'll pick one, right? So he said to his daughters, "So where is he? Why have you left the man? Invite him and let him eat bread." Moses consented to stay with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses. Mazel tov. They had a son. She bore a son and named him Gershon, for he said, "I was a stranger in a foreign land," whatever that means. Okay, these are the 3 episodes. What are the 3 episodes? Again, quickly. Moshe sees an Egyptian hitting the Jew. He kills the Egyptian. Moshe sees 2 Jews fighting. He steps in and he says, "Wicked one, why are you going to hit your friend?" The sages have a very, very beautiful interpretation. Sages say, I think Rashi may quote it also. Let's read Rashi. We have it in Rashi. He says, Russia, wicked one, why are you going to hit your fellow? So what does that mean? That tells you, say the sages, that he didn't hit him yet. He saw him raising his hand, about to strike his fellow. And that's what the sages say. If someone wants to strike, raises his hand on the fellow, even before he hits him, he's already considered wicked, right? So let's look at Rashi in verse 13. It's on the screen here. Why are you going to strike? Lama takeh. Takeh is future tense. It doesn't say, why did you hit your fellow? Right? I'm looking at verse 13. I'm looking at verse 13. Let's see if it's here in the art scroll. Verse 13. No, it's not in the art scroll, I don't think. No, it's not in the art scroll. 12 to 14 skips it, yeah. But Rashi has this, and he says it doesn't say, why have you hit your fellow? Lama hikita. It says, Lama takeh, why are you going to it in the future tense? Says Rashi, although he had not struck him, he is called wicked for merely raising his hand to strike him, from Sanhedrin, from the Gemara. So the Gemara says, anyone who who raises a hand to somebody else, even before he strikes him, is already considered wicked. And then there's a very, okay. Okay, so that is the 3 stories. I wanted to say one thing about the 3 stories. Again, the reason why this is so important, because these are Moses' credentials. So there's a comment, I think it's Rabbi Shamshon of Al-Hirsch, I don't remember offhand. And he says as follows, he says, if you think about these 3 stories, you see, it goes from easier to harder. In other words, more natural to less natural. And the point is, Moshe goes through all these stages. What does he say? He says like this. When you naturally, if someone from outside your group oppresses someone from your group, you're going to stick up for the person in your group. That's natural. You know, people see the worst, especially in tribal societies. There's the outsider, that is my group. If somebody from the outside wants to strike my group, I protect my group. Okay, so that's the first story. We have an Egyptian striking a Jew. Okay, so the fact that Moshe identifies himself as a Hebrew, doesn't call them Jews, he calls them Hebrews. The fact that Moshe identifies himself as a Hebrew is an interesting point. But once he does, then you have an outsider striking a member of your group. So it's more natural to step in. Some people look the other way, but it's easier to step in because that's the natural tendency that human beings have, is to protect the member of the group from the outsider. What is less common is to have 2 members of my own group. Then I don't care, kill each other, who cares? And see what the commentary said. I'm going to read a commentary from Kli Yakar, which is very sad. It actually sounds like I got it from the newspaper today. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, but it's harder to, you're naturally less inclined to step in when 2 Jews are fighting. Oh, an anti-Semite is trying to start up with a Jew. Oh, all the Jews come to protect, right? An outsider is fighting with a member of your group. It's natural to stick together and protect each other. But if members of my own group are fighting with each other, okay, live the other way. I don't care. It's not like an outside threat. Okay. What's even harder is 2 strangers. Moshe shows up to Midian. There's a fight between the shepherds are harassing the Midianite woman, the girls. He doesn't know who they are. Okay, this is not even a different. So it's not someone from outside my group harming my group. It's not 2 members of my group. It's like 2 strangers. Like how did you get involved here? let them manage their business. But what you see is across all these stories, from the easier to the harder, Moshe is not a person who's willing to sit idly by when there's oppression, when people are being oppressed, and therefore, and he steps in, and that's his natural tendency. That's that's his character trait, and therefore, he is Torah doesn't say so, but it seems that that's why he's selected. Because if Torah tells us these stories, I'm sure Moshe did a lot of things in his life. So, but if Torah is telling us these stories, so the simple level is just we have to place Moshe in a desert. How did Moshe get to the desert? Well, he had to run away from the Egyptian, from Pharaoh. Why did he run away from Pharaoh? Well, because he killed the Egyptian. Who heard? The two Jews saw him fighting. You need the story to get the chief character Moshe out of Egypt and into Midian, and then into becoming a shepherd, and then to the desert. So that's the story. But if another angle is, no, the purpose of these stories is to tell you something about Moshe, and not just something trivial, but something important of why he was chosen. And like I said, we go through these 3 steps because these 3 steps are the ones that show how he how it's actually less and less natural to step in, and yet he does so. So that's point number 1. Yes, of course. I don't think so. Midian, Cush is probably Ethiopia.
Wasn't his wife a Cushite?
So that's a different story. The question is what that means. In other words, in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about how Moshe, in the book of Numbers, it talks about how Moshe's sister and brother talk about him and talk about it, the Cushite woman that he married. The question is why Cushite? Rashi raises the question over there. She's clearly a Midianite woman. It says clearly Kohen Midian, he's the prince of Midian. He has 7 daughters. Clearly, they're from Midian. He's a prominent member of Midian. Rashi's okay. We'll talk about that in a second. But in any case, the question is, what is a Cushite woman from Cush? And Cush is not synonymous with Midian. Cush is Ethiopia. So Ethiopia will be west of Egypt. And Cush and Midian is probably southern Jordan. In other words, southern Jordan is a desert, maybe a little bit into Saudi Arabia today, but that's Midian. So the question becomes southern Jordan. So the question becomes, how is she a Cushite woman? So there's 2 interpretations. So Cush, let's see, Rashi, what do you need me for?
She also could have been a Cushite.
Could be, but she's not referred to that until much later, right? So Rashi says, I don't want to speak from memory because I'm going to mess this up, but Rashi says that she's beautiful. And because she's beautiful, everyone calls her a Cushite woman. What's the connection? Because Cush were not beautiful, but they didn't want to make it. That's the way people spoke. They didn't want to make an evil eye. So sort of a euphemism for beauty. That's what Rashi says. It's one interpretation. Another interpretation is, let me see Rashi's, which I don't say something wrong. No. This is the derech. This is the derech. Here it is. By the way, it's exactly the same thing, because remember, we started talking about how Moshe is the humblest of men. That's exactly where the verse is. That the verse you're mentioning is verse 1, chapter 12, and this is verse 3. That he's the humblest of men. That's why I didn't respond when they spoke about him. But in any case, Ha'isha Kushi. So I'm going to read from ArtScroll, page 795. Says the ArtScroll, the Cushite, literally Ethiopian woman. So he quotes Rashi. Cushite, literally Ethiopian woman, right? You see 1, right? Number 1 on page 795 at the left side of the column. The Cushite woman, literally Ethiopian woman. Sipporah was from Midian, not Ethiopia. The description of her as a Cushite was a euphemistic reference to her great beauty. It is common in scripture and Talmudic literature to attach a derogatory epithet to a loved one in order to prevent ayin hara, evil eye, i.e. envy. The numerical value of Kushit is equal to that of Yifat Mareh, beautiful of appearance. The term is repeated later in the verse to suggest that her physical beauty was matched by her character. This is not exactly what Rashi says, but it's sort of based on Rashi. I'll try to read Rashi more precisely. Oh no, Rashi does say that from the Medrash. Yeah. So there's two interpretations. So Rashi says a few things. So Rashi says, everyone acknowledges her beauty, just like everyone acknowledges the darkness of the Kushite, the Ethiopian. Then Rashi says, Kushit is the numerical value of Yifat Mareh, beautiful. Okay, so that is for Tzipora. Okay. Go ahead, Vicky, please.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi. I have a question about the actual act of killing. Is does Torah consider that problematic? I mean, we don't know how bad the beating was in the first place, but is it okay to take the justice into your hands? Of course, there was no police to call or anything like that.
Right.
But is it okay to take the justice in your hands? And as a proof to that, Moshe was afraid the second time around. So he understood, he sensed that there may be
Afraid the
something
first time
not
around,
so
Vicky,
great.
let me interrupt you.
The second time around, the second.
Even the first time he was afraid because it
Yeah.
says he looked.
He hid the body, right? That's
right. So I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know the answer to your question. I would just think about the fact that what was the options? He can't step in and then try to stop him, because then the Egyptian would harm him, right? The only way you have to stop this guy is you also have to bury the evidence, pun intended, right? So the question is, do you take the matters into your own hands? The answer is no. If there's a government, if there's law, if there's order. But if there isn't, then the question is, what do you do then? So it seems like Moshe made the decision. So is it wrong? I don't think it's wrong. I'll put it up for a vote.
Obviously not. Obviously not, because he's the greatest prophet, and nowhere in the Torah it says that it's a sin. So
right.
Not. So when there is no justice, you can't take him ever into your hands.
Right. There is a fascinating Talmudic discussion about taking justice into your own hands. And in some cases it's permitted, even if there is a judicial system. But this is it's not about criminal matters. Like, for example, if someone takes my phone and steals my phone and puts it on his front porch, and he's in his front porch, could I trespass, take it back? It's mine. Do I have to go to court? That's a machlekes in the Talmud. It's a disagreement in the Gemara. And the answer is that a person could. That's the halacha. The question, of course, the parameters. So you could sit here all day, talk about the parameters. But in other words, there is a discussion, but those discussions are clearly only if it's your item and you see it and you identify it, not just justice in general, like, oh, you stole my item, so I'm going to go and take your item. No, you can't do that. And certainly not in criminal matters, right? Criminal matters that the society will erupt into anarchy if everybody tries to take the law into their own hands. But that's all talking about if there's a system that will protect you. If there's the system that won't protect you, then there's no law. You won't really have a choice. So I think that is I think you make a good point. I think you asked it in the form of a question, but I think really you're making a point, which is a good point.
And thank you for the answer. It was a good answer.
The answer is that I don't know. But yeah, that's what I think. Okay, let's find some good stuff. Let's find some good stuff to dig into. There's a lot of good stuff here.
No, it's interesting. I'm just thinking. Moshe's motive, burying the man quickly, there could have been a duality of purpose there.
Right.
Number one, to conceal what he had done.
Right.
And number two, the fact that he's imbued with the knowledge of quick burial.
Right.
I certainly think it wasn't due.
Oh, interesting. Oh, the concept. Right. It doesn't say buried, because I think buried would be would be the concept that his goal was to be sort of to honor the deceased. But it doesn't even say bury him. And maybe I translated it as bury, but it says vayitmenehu lahatmin. I guess it could be burial. It says he hid him. He hid him in the sand. But the truth of the matter is that we also use that also for burial, like on many gravestones, not all, but many gravestones, you would say you would have Pei Nun on top. Pei Nun, and Pei Nun is Pon Nitman. Here was buried. But that word, the root of that word is Vayitmeneu, it's the same word. So maybe it is burial. Even though here it's translated as hiding. Yeah. Okay, so there's a few things we could talk about. One concept is that what you clearly see here in this story is there's infighting between the Jewish people. Let me open up the Rashi here. Let's go back a little bit.
Another thing that certainly emerges, aside from everything else, is the proactivity of Moshe's character.
Yes. Yeah, he didn't just happen to be that the Egyptian hitting the Jew happened to cross his path. It says, Vayetze Alechav, he went out to his brothers. And then he went out to see what's going on. It's very easy to stay in the palace, right? And say, I don't hear anything, I don't know anything, there's injustice 2 blocks away from me, but I don't know about it. It'd be very easy for him to do that. But no, he goes out to his brothers. And then I would think you had a bad experience, you had to kill somebody, go hide for a little bit, go on vacation, go to Florida. No. The next day, what does it say? It says again, I'm looking at verse 13. I'm looking at verse 13. He went out on the second day, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were quarreling. Right? Again, he went out. Went out doesn't mean he went out of his palace. Went out means he went out of his way. Right? He went just like the first day. It says the first day, it says, Moshe grew up and went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens, meaning he went to see what's happening. And the second day also, he went out. Right? So he went to them. The third story, it came to him. Right? The third story, he was sitting at the well. And the Midianite and the daughters, the daughters of we call him Jethro. And this story is not called Jethro, it's called Reuel. Throughout the Torah, he has 7 names, but that's another story. The bottom line is that story comes to him. For the first 2 stories, he seeks out the story, he seeks out the trouble, he wants to see, right? It's so easy. We live, with, I don't want to start getting political here, but it's very easy to have injustice just a few miles away from you. But not you. We are protected and we're in our society, we're in our gated community and everything is fine, right? But the idea that Moshe could have been in the palace, even if he knows a Hebrew, you don't have to go out to see what's happening. And he goes out and he has the experience and he comes back the next day. And again, he's looking to see what's going on, right? So I think that's part of it. It doesn't let him, you say proactive, but it means he can't just say, I'm happy, I'm comfortable, but he's motivated and moved to go see how other people are doing. So I think that's part of who he is.
Well, also interceding between the argument and two Hebrews in preventing one Hebrew from getting injured.
Right.
Well, theoretically.
Yeah. Right.
Or both from getting injured.
Right. Yeah, and it's even proceeding, right? In a way, you could think about it. The first story is the Egyptian was hitting the Jew. Before that, it even didn't happen yet, according to the interpretation of Taker. Why will you hit? He was about to hit, right? So he steps in even before. right? In general, you see he's stepping, he's being proactive. He's not waiting for the kids to kill each other. I'll be honest, I'll make a confession. Sometimes the kids fight. Okay. Sometimes you see the fight is starting. So you have to step in before, so you shouldn't fight. But sometimes I'm too busy. I can't trouble myself. I'm reading. I don't want to stop, whatever it is. So I say, no, when they cry, I'll come, But sometimes Moshe says, no. Moshe says, you see the trouble is brewing, step in early and swiftly. And you don't have to wait till the people are killing each other. Maybe that's a lesson.
I'm sorry coming in late, but I have a question. So maybe you already discussed it, but I remember Dennis Prager's discussion of this part, and he was saying that Moshe did to the Egyptian exactly the same thing that the Egyptian was doing to the Israelite, meaning literally the same verb is used. So he was smiting him, killing him, however it's true. So he just did to him what he was doing. He was about to, murder the Jew, and so he just stepped in self-defense. So it's not even that clear why is Moses at all criticized for it, or
Right.
is viewed as something, or he did exactly the same thing as the Egyptian.
So to be honest, that is a perfectly valid interpretation, but we have to acknowledge the fact that as you mentioned, the word makeh, the word strike, I don't know about English, but in Hebrew, makeh is clearly could be hitting or it could be killing. Just like the strike. I think in English, strike could also be both. I don't know. But the bottom line is, so it's perfectly fine, perfectly good translation is that guy was trying to kill the Jew, and Moshe steps in and kills him first. Now, that's a perfect interpretation. Personally, I'm with Vicky on this. I think it's actually a bigger, in a way, it's even a greater thing for Moshe if the guy is hitting a helpless Jew and Moshe steps in and kills him. I have no problem with that. I don't think it's immoral, because what were his alternatives? Right? There's no justice system. If Moshe just stops to intervene, Moshe can get himself killed. So I have no problem saying that. I have no problem saying that makeh means the Egyptian is hitting the Jew. Now he's hitting him now. Will it escalate? I don't know. Moshe doesn't know, right? But you have to stop someone. You have to stop this Egyptian. What tools do you have? So again, I'm not taking a side, and I fully agree that makeh. You're right. It's the same word, makeh. He's hitting. Makeh ishivri. He saw an Egyptian man, makeh, hitting a Hebrew person from his brothers. Vayif and Kovachor, he looked both ways and he saw there's no man. Vayach. Vayach is the same root. Makeh. Hika. Yach. It's a different word, but the chaf is the same word. It's the same thing. Even in the art scroll, they translate both as striking. He saw the Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man, and then it says, so he struck down the Egyptian. But I'm asking you, Michael, would you be offended if it meant that the Egyptian is hitting the Jew and Moshe steps in and kills him? I don't think I'd be offended.
No, I'm not at all. It's the opposite. Like, why? My understanding is, I think at least some commentators sort of criticized Moses for it. Am I not understanding it right? But
I don't know about traditional commentator. I don't think traditional classic commentators criticize Moshe for that. I don't think so. I think to the contrary, I think that they say
Right.
This is a story of, in a way, the sort of the credentials of Moshe. Why
Right.
Moshe chose it? Because he's somebody that cannot tolerate injustice.
Yeah, no, I totally, I don't see, if he is doing the same thing, I
Right.
see no reason for any critique at all. So
Right.
maybe I'm not understanding it right in terms of maybe there was no criticism, but
No, look,
I don't
today,
see.
I'm sure there could be some people criticize. All I'm saying is that I don't think the classic commentators are
Okay.
maybe contemporary and maybe right. Today.
Well, today is
I tell you that I always talk about this. Rosh Hashanah is coming, and Rosh Hashanah is one of the most troubling stories in the Bible. Of course, is the binding of Isaac. And I was at binding of Isaac, and where I grew up, it was a normal story. That's what you do. So many Jews throughout history sacrificed their own life and the life of their children to remain Jewish. So it was a normal thing. Where I grew up, it was just a normal thing. And I remember I was in the airport. I was coming back from Israel. I was 16, and it was a few days before Rosh Hashanah, and they were interviewing a rabbi, not a Orthodox rabbi, on CNN, and the rabbi says, "I have no idea why we read the binding of Isaac on Rosh Hashanah. It's the craziest story. It's a terrible story, because why would he do that?" And I was like, the first time I even like heard, I grew up in a little secluded, protected environment. So it was like, oh wow, people think that is a bad thing, So my point is, today everyone says, people say anything. So I can't tell you no one criticized Moshe, but I don't think that I think the traditional commentators and the classic commentators, they don't see this as a problem at all. And I'm just saying, even more, even if it was not, I'm going further than Dennis Prager. Even if the guy was hitting the Jew and Moshe killed him, even so, hopefully we still have First Amendment rights. I could say whatever I want. I'm not going to get arrested for inciting violence. But even so, I don't think it's a terrible thing, because we had that discussion. Vicky asked, was that the right thing? Yeah, I think it's the right thing. What are your alternatives? You have to take the justice into your own hands, because you don't have the justice system that is fair. And what could he do? Just hit the Egyptian and wait for the Egyptian to kill him? What is he going to do? So for me, I'm very comfortable with either interpretation. I'm not saying, God forbid, that Dennis Prager is wrong. Dennis Prager happens to be my wife's third cousin. So God forbid.
I think that was his position also.
Okay.
I just think that I may be not remembering correct, but I think his response was to the attitude, maybe not or maybe like modern Orthodox, and he was defending. I was like, yeah, this is exactly the right thing to do. What else do you expect? It's even the same verb.
Right, it is the same verb. Yeah, it is.
Okay. Is it literally the same, or is just the root the same?
This is not the same verb, because makeh is present, and vayach, makeh is present. It's not the same verb. It's not literally the same verb, but it's the same root. It's the same root.
Okay.
But in Hebrew, there's different ways of saying killing, and one of them is striking. And that word striking, lehakot, in modern Hebrew, if you say lehakot, it usually means to hit. It could mean to kill if in certain contexts, like if you're going to say, I'm going to strike my enemy, right? Then they're not going to think it means hit. Then they're going to think it means kill. But in regular speech, if I say I went and I hit an Egyptian, no one's going to, and I went and I struck an Egyptian, no one's going to say, if I say hikiti, I hit an Egyptian, no one's going to think I killed an Egyptian. They're going to think I hit the guy. It's not the guy in the face. But if I say I hit my enemies, then it could mean. I'm saying even in modern Hebrew, but in biblical Hebrew, it's clear that this verb, this root could mean to strike. Usually means to hit, but it can mean kill. But there are other words for kill. There's other words for kill, other words for murder. So we have all kinds of words. Okay, what was I about to say? Oh, let's go a little to the Medrash. Let's move to the Medrash. So thank you for that, Michael. Thank you. Some Medrash here. Okay. Okay, beautiful Medrash. A little sad, but when I say beautiful, I don't mean it's happy, right? Beautiful could be sad also. So this is a very interesting Medrash, and Moshe says, and let's start with the verse, then we'll get to the Medrash. We'll start with Rashi. So we have three layers here. We have the verse, we have the Rashi from the Medrash, and I'm going to give some Hasidic commentary on a deeper way of understanding both what the Medrash is saying. So we're going to go three layers. Verse 14. Let's read the verse, then we'll read the Rashi, then we'll read the deeper interpretation of the Medrash. Because again, when you read Medrash, the Medrash almost always has a deeper story, and it's sometimes saying it in a simplistic way, but there's always a deeper story. Let's look at 14. And he retorted. What is 14? What's the context? The context is that Moshe sees two Hebrews fighting, and he tells the one wicked one, why are you striking your fellow? And that guy responds. So this is one Hebrew who was about to hit his other Hebrew and was rebuked by Moshe. Now he's retorting. And he retorted, who made you a man, a prince, and a judge over us? Do you plan to slay me as you have slain the Egyptian? Moses became frightened, and he said, indeed, the matter has become known. What is the simple interpretation of this verse? The simple interpretation of this verse, everybody knows that I killed the Egyptian. Now I'm in jeopardy. Now I'm in danger. That's a simple interpretation, and that's why Moshe was afraid. Moshe was afraid because the matter has been known. What's the matter? The matter is that he killed the Egyptian. That's the simple interpretation, and it's a beautiful interpretation. Says Rashi. Rashi says it's a medrash, and the medrash says no, completely different story. Moshe is afraid about something else completely. Moshe is afraid if the Jews could be fighting, and if the Jews could slander each other, because Moshe understands that this guy is about to slander Moshe and tell everybody that Moshe killed this Egyptian, which is exactly what happened. That guy went on to do that, and that's how the news reached Pharaoh. Moshe says, now I'm worried maybe these people are not worthy of redemption if the Jews are infighting. And we could talk about why Moshe was worried about that, but that's a very powerful medrash. Let's read Rashi. I'm reading Rashi. Let's see if the article has it. Rashi has, the matter is known. The article has the second point. I'm going to make the second medrash. It says it's related, but it's a second piece of Rashi on 14. So we'll get to that in a second. But on 13, on 14, Rashi, there's 2 points. Moshe became frightened. They're commenting on, their article does the second comment of Rashi, but I'm starting with the first comment. Vayira Moshe, Moshe became frightened. So the first thing Rashi says, this is to be explained according to the simple meaning. Yeah, it's kipshuta, simple interpretation. What does that mean? Meaning that Moses was afraid Pharaoh would kill him. That's a simple interpretation. What's Moshe afraid? Moshe is afraid that now people are going to hear that he killed him. Pharaoh would want to kill, that he killed the Egyptian. Pharaoh was going to try to kill him, and therefore Moshe is afraid. That's a simple interpretation. Says Rashi, there's a midrashically. There's a medrash. What does the medrash say? Midrashically is that it is interpreted to mean that he was worried because he saw in Israel wicked men, i.e. informers. It's a word dal torin. I don't even know what language dal torin. It's probably, I have no idea what language is dal torin in. I don't know. So I don't know what it means. Here they translate it as informers. He said, since this.
Can you say that word again?
De la torin. De la torin. De la Torin. Is it Aramaic? Is it Greek? I don't know. If there's a Rashi here with English. De la Torin. So it's D-L, De la D-A-L-T-O-R-Rin, I-N. Hoping there's an English Rashi here. There used to be one downstairs. English Rashi. English Rashi here. Oh, we have this book. Maybe this will help. This may help. Sorry. I'm just curious what the word is, but in any case, not that important for the big picture, but it's. Yeah, he translates informers, doesn't say anything about the word. Article. Okay, we'll figure it out. Let's see if we can find, maybe we'll try to find the root of that word. But in any case, there's informers. So he says, Moshe is afraid. He said, since this is so, perhaps the Israelites, do not deserve to be redeemed from slavery, from Tanchuma. So this is a very interesting point. Moshe is afraid not that about his own fate, that Pharaoh is going to hear and he is going to have to run away. He says, if the Jews couldn't fight with each other, and the Jew who's being, remember, this is a strange scenario. This Jew is being oppressed by the Egyptians. All Jews are being oppressed by the Egyptians. And the Jew is fine with that. The Jew doesn't rebel. When Moshe steps in to rebuke the Jew for hitting another Jew, then the guy screams and says, who are you to tell me what to do? Okay? So Moshe said, and he's prepared to let other people know about this. In other words, he's an informer. So Moshe says, now I'm afraid. He says, 1 second, maybe these people are not worthy to be redeemed. And then look at the next Rashi. Indeed, the matter has become known. What's the matter? So again, there's 2 interpretations. The simple interpretation is the matter has become known. It's been known that I killed the Egyptian. But the Medrash interpretation takes it is a total different story. So let's read it again in Rashi. Indeed, the matter has become known to be interpreted according to the apparent meaning. Meaning that's a simple meaning. That it was known that he had slain the Egyptian. Its midrashic interpretation, however, is the matter I was wondering about, i.e., why the Israelites are considered more sinful than all the 70 nations of the world, to be subjugated with backbreaking labor, has become known to me. Indeed, I see they deserve it. Wow, this is powerful stuff, right? Because what's happening here? Now Moshe is saying, so he says, Moshe was afraid. What was he afraid? And then it says, indeed, the matter has become known. So the simple interpretation is he's afraid that Pharaoh is going to hear that he killed the Egyptian, and the matter has been known. Now everyone knows that I killed the Egyptian. But the Midrashic interpretation is no, Moshe wasn't afraid for himself. He said maybe the Jewish people are not worthy of being redeemed because there are informers amongst them. And now he says, now the matter is known. Which matter? Now I know why they've been oppressed in Egypt. I thought, why the Jewish people being oppressed? Why were they deserving more than all the other nations to be enslaved? Now, says Moshe, and this is very harsh, but we'll get to the Hasidic meaning in a minute. Now he says, now I know why they're being oppressed, because maybe they're deserving this. Because they're completely they're deserving. If someone could do something so terrible to inform to the Egyptian, to Pharaoh about Moshe, then maybe the Jewish people are deserving. So this is obviously very harsh. So I want to give a little Hasidic interpretation. We have 5 minutes left. Maybe we'll finish a minute or two early, but let's get to the Hasidic interpretation. The Hasidic interpretation begins with a question. We know the Medrash says that the Jewish people at that point, they were not on a very high spiritual level. In fact, they were idol worshippers. Most of the Jewish people, except for the tribe of Levi, served the idols. So why is it that if Moshe says, oh, maybe these people are not worthy of redemption, why was it specifically this sin of informers, of slander, that Moshe was so afraid of? If the Jewish people are unworthy of sin, if Moshe is afraid that the Jewish people are not worthy of being redeemed, maybe there were greater sins, right? So idol worship is the worst sin in the book. Well, not the worst, but one of the 3 worst. But slander, informing, it doesn't seem to be the most terrible sin you could think of. So the Hasidic interpretation is like this. The problem that Moshe sees, he sees like this. God promised the Jewish people, or the ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he's going to take their descendants, the Jewish people, and the Jewish people will be the chosen nation. And he's going to bring them back to Israel. Moshe says, 1 second, there's no nation here. If there's infighting, the infighting undermines the nationality. They're not the Jewish people. They're not a people. They're just a mix of individuals who can't get along. So in a way, the fact that they're serving idols is no problem. That's not a contradiction to redemption. The contradiction to redemption in Moses' eyes is the lack of unity. Because if there's lack of unity, then the fear is there's no people here. And this is no people, meaning there's no nation. If there's not a people, it's not a people, it's a collection of individuals. It's not a nation. And if it's not a nation, then God's promise to take them out of Egypt doesn't apply, because God's promise is for the nation of Israel. But there is no nation, because if you can't get along, you're not a nation. And this is very scary, because think about what's happening in the news today. And personally, I don't know that I know what the right policy is, what the wrong policy is, but the scariest thing is that I peek on the news and I pick on my Twitter feed, and when I follow some of the Israeli journalists and Israeli politicians, and people are killing each other, and people you don't see that you don't see this as one nation, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. I think whatever we do, we have to be united, and Moshe, that's his fear. That's his fear. It's fascinating, because Medrash is saying this. He's not afraid of that the Pharaoh is going to hear that he killed the Jews. It's not what he's afraid of. He's afraid of now maybe the Jewish people are not going to survive. Not because they're sinners. The sinners has nothing to do. God's promise to protect the Jewish people is not conditional on whether or not they sin. They could serve idols, no problem. But if you're not a people, then if you're not a people, then how is God gonna fulfill his promise to save the Jewish people if you're not a people? If you're just a collection of individuals. And that's why Moshe was frightened. Now, this is all negative. Now we're going to go a little deeper to the next Rashi, which is even more negative. But once we give it the Hasidic interpretation, maybe we could make it a little bit more positive. So the second Rashi says that Moshe says, Achein odah hadavar, now the matter is known. Says Rashi, I wondered about this, why the Israelites are considered more sinful than all. That's bad translation. What have the Jewish people sinned more than the other nations, more than the other 70 nations, to be subjugated to backbreaking labor? The matter has become known to me. Indeed, they are worthy of it. What does that mean? It means a simple interpretation of this Medrash. No, there's 3 levels. Simple interpretation of the verse is, the matter is known. Now everyone knows that I killed Pharaoh, that I killed the Egyptian. The Medrash says, no, the matter is known. Now I know why the Jewish people are enslaved, because of the infight. The Hasidic interpretation and is the now the matter is known. Now I understand why they had to have slavery. Not that they were deserving of slavery, but now I understand why they had to have slavery. And the Hasidic interpretation that Rebbe says is as follows: the Jewish people indeed were not united, but in a way, the fact that they were enslaved actually created the cohesiveness and created the connection and created that unity. And Moshe says, I see people who naturally did not get along, and naturally are very independent spirits, and naturally everybody wants to be the own boss, and nobody wants to listen to somebody else, and nobody wants to subjugate themselves to someone else. But the fact that they're all together in the slavery and they're in the same situation, and they have an outside threat, is now I know, perhaps, he doesn't say for sure, I think this may be the reason of the slavery, because the collective tzara, the collective difficulty, could actually create a certain cohesiveness and a cohesive story and connect them. So, of course, it wasn't perfect. These individuals, according to the Medrash, these individuals that were hitting and informed on Moshe, are Datan and Aviram, and they're big troublemakers, and they cause trouble later. They're involved in the rebellion of Korach. Those are the outliers. But according to the Hasidic interpretation of Medrash, is Moshe is afraid the lack of unity will stop the redemption, because the biggest threat is not the external threat. The biggest threat is that we are not a nation, because the disagreements are okay. But if it comes to the point where we're willing to inform somebody else against another Jew, that undermines the unity as a nation. And Moshe says, now I know why they're enslaved. Not that they're deserving of slavery. No, now I know why maybe Hashem brings the difficulty, because unfortunately, if we can't unite on our own, by ourselves, maybe we need an outside threat to unite. And Moshe says, maybe that's why this is happening. I think this is very profound. And like I said, I hope that today, because we have the outside threat, hopefully we could reunite. And it doesn't mean we have to agree. We could disagree, and we could disagree very strongly, but we have to be one people. That's the key. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for coming on Labor Day weekend, which means you're so committed, which is amazing, beautiful. So thank you all, and we shall see each other in good health, God willing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.